Okay, I mean, I guess they really do drop more legendaries now. Ladies, gentlemen, and Haradrim of all ages, with the release of patch 1.1.1 in Diablo 4, you probably have a few questions in relation to some changes that have been made, at least as far as how they will affect your main activities within the game and your main farming methods. By this, I mean farming methods for experience, for legendaries, for gear in general, and for better Malignant hearts, if you're still searching for those, of course. So let's talk about it all, specifically the best methods for doing all of these things now. First up, I want to talk about Malignant hearts. For weeks we've talked about different ways of farming wrathful hearts because pretty much anything else is relatively easy to pick up and come by, so wrathfuls are the ones that you'll probably be farming for specific ones of. Well, if so, I have great news for you because the new best wrathful heart farm really is just doing random rolls on Malignant hearts. Even fresher than patch 1.1.1, we have a brand new hotfix that just hit last night, and one of its major points is increasing the drop rate of wrathful hearts from the random heart box from 2% to 10%, which means it is now 5 times as likely to get a wrathful heart from one of these boxes, 1 in every 10 in theory on average, which is really not bad. Oh, and before we move on, I would like to point out that this actually is under a seasonal bug fixes tab, which implies that the previous rates were actually a bug. On top of that, the random invoker craft now has a 15% chance to give you a wrathful invoker over the 3% that it was before. Past that, wrathful invokers now have a drop chance from elites in general, which they didn't before, and all this just adds up to make the best wrathful heart farm now just doing Malignant tunnels and collecting all the hearts. Of course, the best one still being the ravening pits and the dry steppes, if you're wondering. You get 4 guaranteed Malignant elites within here, 2 is the objective of the tunnel itself, 1 just randomly spawning, and 1 more spawning after you destroy the pustule objective at the end, which is 4 hearts per run, around 100 seconds per run. That's 144 Malignant hearts in an hour, an average of 10 ichor per salvage, 20 ichor cost per type for a random box, and that's around 24 random boxes per hour consistently, not to mention all of these elites now having a drop chance of wrathful invokers to up that number significantly further, and any of the Malignant hearts potentially even dropping as an upgrade to what you're already using. Then with that, let's move on to legendary and unique farming. If you are after a specific legendary aspect, the best method to do that is through a mixture of helltide farming and opal gambling. Helltide has fast spawning, high value events, so you just spam through these events, completing all of them, collecting cinders and opals by doing so. Bring the cinders to a helltide chest that matches the type of legendary that you're after, bring the opals to the vendor and ask for the correct type of equipment too. To be more specific, different legendary aspects are locked to only be usable on certain item slots, so each individual item slot has a specific amount of different types it can take. The goal here then is to grab the slot that has your desired aspect type possible with the minimum amount of competing options. For defensive aspects, you want to roll on pants, as this is the only aspect type that they can roll. For offensive aspects, you want to roll for offhands or one-handed weapons, as these are the only aspect they can take and they are cheaper than doing something like a two-handed weapon. For resource, you want to roll for rings, as they can only spawn on rings. For utility, you want to roll on boots, as they have the least competing options here. And for mobility, you actually also want to roll on boots for the least amount of competing options.
Oh, what am I gonna do? I spent $2 whole on these boots and now I'm stuck with them!
As for more random legendary farm, the type of thing that you do to just blitz find as many aspects as possible to either improve your collection of legendaries that you already have, or even if you're just trying to farm gold, as legendaries of course have a high gold value. The best way to do this is, unsurprisingly, nightmare dungeons. If you are too low level to handle nightmare dungeons specifically, then the best farm of a normal dungeon is Mercy's Reach, but once you get to nightmare dungeons, they are just notably better in every way. Nightmare dungeons were already great for this before 1.1.1, having a guaranteed legendary at the end with a chance at a second legendary too, as well as multiple bonus gear drops, not to mention all the regular legendary chances that you got from mobs inside the dungeon. But now this is even better than it was before, because bosses above level 35 have a 100% guaranteed legendary drop rate, which means every boss inside of a nightmare dungeon, which means if you do a relatively short nightmare dungeon that has a boss at the end, something like Mercy's Reach is a great example. You would get 2 guaranteed legendaries from doing that, one from the boss, one from the dungeon itself. At least 1 bonus roll chance is a third in the reward screen, and then also the regular 1 to 2 with the legendaries that you get on average from a run of Mercy's Reach anyways. So let's call that 4 legendaries per run. Mercy's Reach is completable in about 3 minutes in a solid build, probably even faster, but at about 3 minutes a run, it's 80 legendaries an hour on average, which is quite lovely to be able to do. Not to mention that this will also give you a roll on each of those legendaries instead being a unique, so if you are doing at least tier 21 dungeons, this should also get you any uniques that you are hunting pretty quickly. I've gotten 3 Tempest Roars in the last day while doing testing for this, by the way, so, you know, legendary rates being up means uniques rates also being up too, which means more fun for everyone. With all that covered, then let's talk about experience farm, the bulk of your time spent in the game, honestly. The method of experience farm hasn't really changed within the patch, but the results of it absolutely have. The best things to farm for experience are still nightmare dungeons, they just have an experience multiplier on the activity as a whole that makes it more rewarding than anything else in the game, and now there's been the density increase inside of these as well, which most people are reporting to be about a 50 to 60% increase on average, though not every dungeon was treated equally, so let's just say it's about 55% increase in mob density in nightmare dungeons on the whole. That doesn't directly translate to a 55% increase in total experience gain though, when you factor in the different experience rates that elites get and the fact that the increased density doesn't seem to actually have added elite spawns, just normal monsters. It's more like a 40% experience increase on average. The best nightmare dungeons before, as far as experience farm, could get you around 45 to 50 million experience per hour in a good build. Increase that by 40%, and you get 63 to 70 million experience per hour on the high end, which is of course just a crazy amount if you happen to have good sigils. If you're wondering, the best nightmare dungeons now, after the patch density changes, seem to be Hoarfrost Demise, Immortal Emanation, Nostrava Deepwood, Surat's Lair, still, but now even better, and then also now Domain Tunnels, which is now significantly better after the density increase that it got, which was more significant than a lot of the other dungeons. All of these are relatively quick dungeons that are very densely packed now more than ever, and they will give you silly experience per hour if you can get a steady supply of sigils for that top 5 right there. And that just about does it then, everyone. Again, Wrathful Hearts are best farmed by just generally farming the Ravening Pits tunnel. They did actually fix the ability to reset the questline Varshan in the patch, so that's gone. You can't just farm that for Wrathful Hearts. So instead, just go farm them tunnels. Salvage the hearts that you don't want, and use them to craft random roll boxes, which are about 5 times as good now as they used to be, or random invoker boxes if you want to get a little spicy. For targeting specific legendaries, you still want to do helltide to collect cinders for specific chests, and obols for gambling in town, and obviously you want to choose the legendary that fits the aspect that you want. For general legendary farm, then the most per hour, you want fast nightmare dungeons with a boss at the end to maximize your drop chances. If you want experience per hour instead, you're still looking at nightmare dungeons, and you want at minimum equal level nightmare dungeons to you, though if you are melting through the enemies like paper anyways, then anything up to 10 levels above you works if it doesn't make it that much harder for the slight experience bonus it gives you, and that's about it then. The actual methods for any of these haven't really changed much, but that's perfectly fine with me, honestly, if the actual effectiveness of the methods has gone up, and it definitely has done so a pretty decent amount, so it's all good as far as I'm concerned. I hope you've enjoyed this breakdown of your prime farming locations in patch 1.1.1 new to Diablo 4, and I hope you enjoy this new world of increased density that has dropped upon us, as well as, you know, the sneaky increase in our drop rates on Wrathful Hearts and Wrathful Invokers, because of course that will make it feel better to actually take part in these seasonal mechanics. Like if you liked the video, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.